to your mother. It's time for another episode of Birds with Friends. Just some high-flying, ran fast vertical stems of professors from Penn watching eagles eat and pray like Pazookies on birthdays. It's Philadelphia, Marissa, Bo, and Zach kicking it. Cooler than 3 penguins till Zach runs off with his valet keys. He's a real nuanced goose. Pull up a branch, get loose. It's time for some juice on some
Birds with Friends.
The early bird gets the worm but prefers getting turned like a turn on some
Birds with Friends.
Marissa, Bo, and Zach are here to squawk. Don't miss the mistress talk on some.
I have a radio hit that I'm late for. I'm gonna give my prediction. You guys can stick on. Is that okay?
Unbelievable. Now we find out who has priority. This is ridiculous.
We've been on for an hour and 35 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Looking forward to the post-game pod.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Birds with Friends on a Wednesday afternoon. Bo Wulf, Zach Berman, Marissa Dunn, here with plenty to talk about as we continue to pick up the scraps following the Eagles' Super Bowl loss. But boy, is there some news. Jonathan Gannon going to Arizona to be the head coach of the Cardinals. Shane Steichen going to Indianapolis to be the head coach of the Colts. So the Eagles left having to hire a pair of coordinators and maybe backfill some other positions. We will get to all of that. We talked to the Eagles in locker room cleanout yesterday. Some interesting comments from A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts. We'll get to that as well. But we got to start with Marissa. How are you?
I'm doing great. I know that this is probably a sad pod for people to listen to because there should be a parade today, but I know we are going to bring lots of great coverage this offseason, so I hope people stick around and are excited about what's to come. How are you?
Happy belated Valentine's Day.
Yes,
Happy belated Valentine's Day.
Zach,
Yes.
How are you?
To
How was
you
your
and yours.
Valentine's Day?
Yes, to you and yours, Zach.
Every day's Valentine's
Let's
Day.
start
for
this
me,
podcast
right?
by wishing a happy Valentine's Day to Emily Berman.
Yes.
Let's do so. Every day is Valentine's Day, right? But that doesn't mean
That could get you in trouble.
It could. No. How am I? I'm doing well. I'm happy to see the two of you. There's a lot going on in Eagles land as we discussed. They cleaned out the lockers, like you mentioned. The coordinator search is ongoing. First team since the 2013 Cincinnati Bengals to lose both the offensive and defensive coordinator in the same year. It could have happened with the 2017 Patriots, but McDaniels went back to New England. That said, this is an important time as Bo wrote, as Bo outlined here.
Who was it? The Bengals? Jay Gruden, Mike Zimmer.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
Yep. So the Nick Sirianni mentioned back in early January, mid-January, when these reports were starting to surface, that one of the most important things for a head coach to do is replace the staff. And we talked, is it going to be one? Is it going to be none? For it to be both, this is pretty significant. And when I alluded to what Bo said, he put on Twitter yesterday how the Eagles had remarkable staff continuity last year. The only one they lost was Jim Bob Cooter, who was kind of behind. He helped situationally, right? But was not a position coach per se. And now here the Eagles are. That they lost both coordinators, and I think there's going to be more staff exits from the staff, if you will, because some of these position coaches could become coordinators. Yeah, that's all a way
when
of
they
saying
join the staff, the usual thing is they sign 2-year deals, and
Yep.
so several of them have contracts coming up.
And so we will see, but it's not the off season; it's the non-playing season. I think that's an important distinction to make because we are
because every person you meet in your regular day-to-day life, like at school drop-off, says, "So what do you do in the off season?" And you say, "Well, my job, still the same thing."
Yeah, or your first day back from the Super Bowl, and it's like, yeah, I got to go into the team facility, and then 2 coaches leave, and I got to write a story at night, and then you're sending texts, you're making calls, and it happens to be Valentine's Day too. So,
Well, before we get to all of the Eagles, all of the news, and we will get to it, I think we need to start with Swooper Storecasting because there have been some shenanigans afoot.
Wait. Hold on before you start.
That's cute. Marissa.
Well deserved, Marissa.
That's
well
cute.
deserved.
You are getting way too ahead of yourself.
For our audio listeners, I just whipped out my handmade crown that I made about 5 minutes before the pod started.
Yes.
And my printer is running low on ink, if you couldn't tell, but
Now, last we left, I was the champion.
Wait,
I had 2 points to 1. Hold on.
We should clarify here. In Swooper and in elections, you can't just declare yourself the winner.
Hold
and be the
on.
winner, okay?
Hold
Okay.
on. We have a lot to unpack here. Okay. Take it easy. Now, let's start with Marissa. When we left, we did not think that there had been 2 plays run on the football logos of the field. I don't know who Marissa paid to review the footage, but somehow some anonymous benefactor found 2 play on for both teams from the footballs.
Shout out
Absolutely.
to that amazing listener.
You
I
got
owe
that.
you everything. Yeah.
Fantastic. Good job by you. That moves you to 2, which would, in theory, tie you with Zach. I don't know why you're wearing a crown. You would have to have one with Zach, too. That would, but you would.
Okay. I'm the queen. He's the king.
Now, we did not count up the explosive plays. The item here that I had, the Eagles win the explosive play battle as defined by Nick Sirianni. Zach, how does Nick Sirianni define the explosive play battle? You're muted.
10 plus yards rushing and 16 plus yards passing.
Now, the Kansas City Chiefs had 9 such plays. The Philadelphia Eagles had 9 such plays. But Zach, when Nick Sirianni looks at the explosive play battle, what does he also do?
Special teams?
No.
Yeah.
Nick Sirianni says that when they are measuring the explosive play battle, they count up the plays and
You jog my memory here.
the yardage. They count
Okay.
up the
Oh,
yardage
yeah.
from the explosive plays.
Yes.
The
But
Kansas
that's
City
not-
Chiefs on their 9 plays
Oh.
of explosive plays, 159 yards. The Eagles on their 9 plays of explosive plays, 222 yards. The Eagles, as defined by Nick Sirianni, won the explosive play battle.
That's that.
2 points
Okay.
for me.
No.
Now,
No, that is not how you referred
Now,
to it on the show.
we
the
go
other day. You
to
said as defined
the
by the
mirror
explosive-
play, cowards draw, knocked over pylon. Some listener or whoever did identify the 3rd and 7 run to Kenny Gainwell, and that is what apparently has knocked away the cowards draw. Not going to happen. Not on my watch.
There
3rd
was
and 7
also
run.
a listener tweeted at us a video of a pylon being knocked over. The yardage pylon.
That's
We
an
did not
imaginary
say
pylon. That's a television prop
We
pylon.
did
That's
not-
not an end zone pylon.
we did not say the end zone pylon.
The Kenny Gainwell run, not a coward's draw by the person who invented the coward's draw. It was a 3rd and 7 run to set up a 4th down go. It was also not a draw. That's a hit for me. 3 for me, 2 for Marissa, 1 for Zach. I am the champion, as deserved over the course of the season. Congratulations to Bo. As the chat is saying, clearly a win for Bo. Fantastic.
You can't just. I mean,
Deniz has been our judge and jury all season long, and
Yeah.
waking up this morning to his ruling was epic. And he did not rule that you won, Bo. He said that I was the winner, which means I end tie with Zach.
Listen, new evidence has been shown. He will admit, rightfully so, that I am the champion. Thank you very much. Done deal. We can go to break.
well, this is so this is a bold strategy here. To what you do is late in the night when everyone's bleary-eyed, you just declare yourself the champion. Okay, you declare yourself the winner, disregarding all facts and figures that go along with it. Okay, that's one part of the strategy. And then what you do after an independent third party declares a legal and rightful winner, what you do therefore is you go after and you start to try to change rules. Say some counties count and some
I'm not
counties
changing
don't.
anything. As defined by Nick Sirianni. As defined by Nick Sirianni, the Eagles won the explosive play battle.
Wait,
And that was not a coward's draw.
You said in the podcast on well, it's Thursday night, but it appeared Friday, that based on their formula of 10 plus, you did not say the yardage when
I didn't say
Agreed.
I didn't say it wasn't the yardage.
you said 10 plus runs.
I didn't say
16
that.
plus
It
plays.
wasn't my item.
No, we defined it
As
because
defined by Nick Sirianni. Those were the words.
no, the parameters, the explosive plays, not
Win
the
the
margin.
explosive play battle as defined by Nick Sirianni.
No, because
If
originally
you want to call
Professor
up Nick
Selman
Sirianni
said,
and ask him if the Eagles won the explosive play battle in the Super Bowl, he will tell you that they did.
Professor Selman said 12 plus yards and 16 plus yards. And then I clarified
No,
there
it's not
that
12,
Nick
it's
Sirianni,
10. Because if it's 12, the Eagles won.
that's what Bo, once again, you're interrupting. This is like a debate where the candidate keeps just interrupting, thinks that his time is. So I can see where you're getting your strategies here. I clarified that Nick Sirianni counts it as 10 plus yards, 4 runs.
Right.
And therefore, Professor Selman clarified that for the ruling here. So
Zach,
that is what we were working off of.
You know better than anyone that Nick Sirianni defines it. He measures it by plays and yardage.
That's
has
in
talked
addition.
about this.
Yeah, that's in addition to. So there are two separate things. The yardage doesn't
The
trump the
explosive
plays.
play battle.
He says they also look at that. It doesn't. I don't think it replaces it. But I'll get clarification from Nick.
Okay.
I'm sure he has other things on his
All right.
plate.
When we get
if
Nick
I send Nick a
Sirianni
message
on Birds with Friends,
yes,
we will ask him if they won the explosive play battle in the Super Bowl. And if he says no, then you will be the champion.
No,
Because
me
Marissa and I
Zach.
will have tied.
Yes.
And that will be and if you and I tie Marissa, somehow Zach gets it because we would split. I'd be at 10.5, he'd be at 11.
What? Now I'm confused.
That's the point.
Me and Zach are the winners, declared by Deniz. I'm the queen. He is the king.
And you know what?
Absolutely.
We're out.
I will actually say to Marissa, Marissa, I think you deserve it.
That is
therefore-
so patronizing.
therefore-
No, Zach. We are co-winners.
co-champions. Okay, fair
Yeah.
enough. Fair enough. So then you're talking then to I'm back to back then, right?
Yeah. Back
No,
to
you guys
back.
lost. I am the champion. I won.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, it's pretty clear, cut and dried here. So I'm sorry for the many false starts. All three of us have been declared champions at different points over the past 12 hours, but now it is final, and I will hear no more talk on the matter.
I think we need to get Deniz on here for his ruling, but I mean, you could check out Twitter. He has a nice little thread on it, and it's very clear what he stated. So that's all I gotta say. Let the facts show itself. I don't need to make up new rules.
I'm
Right,
not
Zach?
making up any. No one's making up new rules. These are the rules. This is what happened. So, congratulations to me. Let's take a break. We'll come back and talk about what's next for the Eagles.
Hold on one second. Sorry, I wasn't ready. I spent too much time building my crown. Hold on. Give me 1 second.
No problem. You weren't prepared for this. I could fill this airtime if we.
No,
if we
it's
want
about
to.
to go.
Okay.
We have great sponsors today. Zach did some great ad reads, so we
Mm.
got to give them their justice.
Just in time for Valentine's Day.
Could have used that.
Okay, still going.
I'm sorry.
I
This
was
is my
very
fault.
surprised. We've never gotten to break this
Yeah.
early in the show.
problem. Should I jump in
figured
real
we
quick?
needed a clean break. No,
Should I jump
because
in real quick?
because if we start, then we're not
Yeah.
gonna. Yeah.
Yeah, hold on. I mean, we could just read some of the comments in the chat. Some people
It
say
seems
we
like
can't
everyone seems to
recount.
be pretty unanimously agreeing that I'm the champion.
No, they say you're the king of the cheats. So
Yes. I mean, first we were on a cameo and he's stumping for Josh Beckett, and now he's out here trying to change election results. I mean, I think this is revealing right here.
okay, we're ready to go. We'll be back after this.
I'm traveling next week and need clothes that are versatile enough for different activities, comfortable enough that they fit right, and I can travel in them and also look and feel the right way. That's where Roan comes in. Men's closets were due for a radical reinvention, and Roan stepped up to the challenge. Roan's commuter collection is the most comfortable, breathable, and flexible set of products known to man. And here's why. Roan helps you get ready for any occasion with the commuter collection, which offers the world's most comfortable pants, dress shirts, quarter zips, and polos. You never have to worry about what to wear when you have the Roan Commuter Collection. Roan's comfortable 4-way stretch fabric provides breathability and flexibility that leaves you free to enjoy what life throws your way, from your commute to work to your 18 holes of golf. It's time to feel confident without the hassle. With Roan's wrinkle release technology, wrinkles disappear as you stretch and wear the product. It's that easy. With Gold Fusion anti-odor technology, you'll smell fresh and clean all day long. And on top of that, Roan is 100% machine washable, so you can ditch the dry cleaner altogether. I have a bunch of flights coming up in the next month, and Roan is going to be so valuable for them. The Commuter Collection can get you through any workday and straight into whatever comes next. Head to roan.com/BWF and use promo code BWF to save 20% off your entire order. That's 20% off your entire order when you head to RHONE.com/BWF and use code BWF. It's time to find your corner office comfort. You can tell when you're using a cheap razor based on the nicks and the cuts and the irritation. And then there's the annoyance of subscription razors when you're waiting for the cartridges to arrive, or you can't believe how much you just spent on them. That's why you must meet Henson Shaving. Henson Shaving is a family-owned aerospace parts manufacturer that has made parts for the International Space Station and Mars rover, and now they are bringing precision engineering to your shaving experience. Razor blades are like diving boards. The longer the board, the more wobble. The more wobble, the more nicks, cuts, and scrapes. A bad shave isn't a blade problem, it's an extension problem. By using aerospace-grade CNC machines, Henson makes metal razors that extend just 0.0013 inches. That's less than the thickness of a human hair. That means a secure and stable blade with a vibration-free shave. And it gets better. The razor has built-in channels to evacuate hair and cream, which makes clogging virtually impossible. Seriously, Henson Shaving wants the best razor, not the best razor business. That means no plastic, no subscriptions, no proprietary blades. The Henson razor works with standard dual-edge blades to give you that old-school shave with the benefits of new-school tech. Once you own a Henson razor, it's only $3 to $5 per year to replace the blades. I'll admit that affordability is attractive to me. Only $5 a year in blades, that's a good sale right there. It's time to say no to subscriptions and yes to a razor that'll last you a lifetime. Visit hensonshaving.com/birds to pick the razor for you and use code BIRDS, and you'll get 2 years worth of blades free with your razor. Just make sure to add them to your cart. That's 100 free blades when you head to hensonshaving.com/birds and use code BIRDS.
All right, back on Birds with Friends.
Annoying.
Second, Marissa.
I'm going to put mine back on. For our audio listeners, Bo went during the commercial break and got his real crown, unlike my paper crown. But you know what? We'll both wear it.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Zach,
we just need to get Zach a crown.
A very newsy.
I'm good.
A very newsy day.
Yes,
for
for sure.
The Eagles yesterday. Let's obviously start with the coaching staff turnover. The departures of Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon. As you said, Nick Sirianni was prepared for this possibility to some degree, but this is a much different challenge for Nick Sirianni than what he's been through the past 2 years. As you said before, no turnover last year, and now having to backfill both of these jobs and potentially other people leaving. I guess let's start with how you expect the coaching staff to look next season. I think it's fair to say that the odds-on favorites for replacements are Brian Johnson on offense and Denard Wilson on defense, but probably the one on defense is a little bit less set in stone.
Yes, I think you framed it well. They have in-house candidates. This is something that they've been looking at and thinking about, and Brian Johnson is certainly the name to watch on offense. We've also discussed Kevin Patullo, but Brian Johnson's going to be an offensive coordinator either here or somewhere else next year, right? So it would behoove the Eagles to promote him. He's a talented coach. He has a background with Jalen Hurts. Now, I said this when they hired him, and I'll say this again. I think it's short changes or undersells, however you want to phrase it, Brian Johnson when all the discussion is about the background with Jalen Hurts. If Brian Johnson did not know Jalen Hurts before he got this job, he would have been accomplished. He would have been like merit. It would have been a merited job. If you look at the work he did with Kyle Trask, you look at the work he did with Dak Prescott, you look at the work he did with Nick Fitzgerald. So point being, and he's done terrific work, obviously, here with Hurts during these past 2 years. I think if he gets promoted to offensive coordinator, it's not to placate Jalen Hurts. It's because Brian Johnson has earned it. And I want to make sure I said that because a lot of the conversation is this is the guy who Jalen Hurts wants. And so, no, this is the guy who's earned this job.
I think that's a good point. That's an important point.
Yeah.
I also think that it's hard to not take into account the relationship with Jalen Hurts only from the sense of, like, you don't want Jalen Hurts, this is a long-term marriage we're talking about. You don't want to lose a guy who he likes, especially like after you just saw what happened when there was some offensive continuity on the staff, right?
Correct. But
I think you're right. Like this is not a handout for Jalen Hurts' buddy. This is a guy who has earned this job.
Exactly. And that's the point I wanted to make, and not to take anything away from Press Taylor, right? Because Press Taylor's a really smart offensive coach too. There was a perception, I think internally and externally, that that Press Taylor was someone who like Carson Wentz was comfortable with and familiar with, right? And when the Eagles went that route, that was something that you kept hearing. Brian Johnson, he certainly has a long-standing relationship with Jalen Hurts. He played for Jalen Hurts' father, but Brian Johnson, like he could be the Panthers offensive coordinator. He was rumored to be the Ravens offensive coordinator. There's teams that are interested in Brian Johnson, and it has nothing to do with the fact that he played for Jalen Hurts' father. So, but the fact that the quarterback likes him, respects him, works well with him, certainly a plus. Defensively, Denard Wilson is he's someone who's very well regarded by the players inside the building. He was a defensive backs coach before he got to Philly for the Rams and the Jets in Greg Williams' system in both places. Greg Williams' system, for those who are unfamiliar with it, is far more comparable to what the Eagles ran with Jim Schwartz than what the Eagles ran the past 2 years with Jonathan Gannon. That's not to say that if Wilson's the coach, they would have, or the defense coordinator, they would have a scheme change, but it's not like just hiring for this scheme. And I think there's a little more unknown with the defensive personnel. The offensive continuity is very important because you know who your quarterback's going to be, you know who your key players are going to be. Plus, the offense is still Nick Sirianni's offense. So the offense isn't going to change. If they brought in an external coach, it would still be Nick Sirianni's offense. I think the defense, there's a little more question there. So that's why I like the way you framed it, that they could hire externally for defense. Now, if Gannon was hired or believed to have been the front runner a few weeks ago, Vic Fangio's name would come up quite a bit. And Vic Fangio, we should say, hasn't officially signed with Miami Dolphins.
The Dolphins just announced it today.
They just announced it today.
Yeah.
Okay, so there you go. Yeah. So then it's.
I was thinking the same thing. That no, this could be like a late push from Jeffrey Lurie, but it was announced today.
Yeah, but like timing matters, because look, if Shane Steichen, I still think the Eagles would have promoted either Brian Johnson or Kevin Patullo if Shane Steichen was the choice a month ago. But there are external guys like Tommy Rees, for instance, Bo's favorite coach, who has left Notre Dame for Alabama. But that's someone who I imagine, Nick Sirianni probably – I bet Nick Sirianni calls Tommy Rees every year trying to get him to come to the NFL, right? So there are
you think he's memorized the number?
Well, at this stage, do you really memorize numbers? You probably just save it in your cell phone, right? Do you know your wife's number?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know Michael's number, Marissa?
This is actually a controversial topic. I just learned it about a week ago.
Okay.
Do you know Emily's number?
I do. I do. But there are people in my phone who I don't know their number, and I would have if I knew them 20 years ago, right? So, so
if you were
as I was
asking questions about the homework.
So the timing here matters, right? After the Super Bowl, it's harder you're either looking for someone who is out of work or you're looking for someone who has a lower job. But when someone's already been hired as an offensive coordinator, defense coordinator somewhere, it's hard to get them to have a lateral position for you, right? So that's something to be mindful of. But yeah, defense, I do think they'll look externally too. Well, I should say too, they're required to look externally for both jobs. They have to interview. They have to interview a minority candidate externally for both jobs by rule with the Rooney Rule, which is a good rule in place. But it would behoove them to see who's out there too, no matter who that coach is. I always think it's valuable to hear different perspectives, to meet different people, and sometimes you can see what people think of your system. You can learn different schemes. You can just have different coaches on your radar. So they should do that. But in some cases, too, time might be of the essence. So certainly to pay attention to.
I think one thing that you just sort of mentioned about the defense that, there's not going to be continuity on defense anyway.
Yes.
Because they're going to there's going to be 7 or 8 guys who played significant snaps on defense who are not going to be on the team next year. So it's going to be different personnel anyway. Maybe it's not quite as harmful. Tell me if you agree or disagree with this statement. I believe that Jonathan Gannon will be a better head coach than Shane Steichen, but that the Eagles will miss Shane Steichen more than they miss Jonathan Gannon.
Good question here. I tend to think most head coaches are not slam dunks, that circumstances have a lot to do with it. So that depends who's the quarterback for Indianapolis. What's your opinion of Kyler Murray? I think that goes for both of them. I think Jonathan Gannon, I'll say this, and look, there's been a lot of Jonathan Gannon talk on this podcast from you, from me, from Professor Selman. I don't think Jonathan Gannon was hired because of his scheme. I don't think Jonathan Gannon was hired based on the performance of the defense. And we can have reasonable debate because of the performance of the defense.
Oh, you mean as a head coach?
Yes, as a head coach, I mean.
Okay, yeah.
I think Jonathan I think the appeal to the Arizona Cardinals for Jonathan Gannon was the leadership, the communication, the energy, the vision. I don't think it was because the Eagles ran this particular scheme or the way they performed in the Super Bowl. I've heard Jonathan Gannon had a bad Super Bowl. There's no defending the Eagles defense in that Super Bowl, especially in the second half. And I've seen the analogy elsewhere that this is like hiring Matt Patricia after the Super Bowl in 2017. If you're hiring Jonathan Gannon based on the Super Bowl performance, you probably have a bad process for hiring a head coach, right? Because I think there's very little correlation between the way you call a defense in the Super Bowl and the way, and all that goes into being a head coach. Being a head coach is...
I don't think there's no correlation. I mean, you're talking about...
I think there's a little correlation.
You have like a long lead up to a very important game. Like how do you prepare? How do you get people ready? I don't think it's completely disparate, but it's not a 1-to-1.
So that's what I'm saying there. So I've said this before. I mean, it'll be hypocritical for me to go otherwise. I think Jonathan Gannon can be a really good head coach in this league, but I think this is a players' league, and I'm higher on Kyler Murray than you are. Is that accurate to say, Bo?
Yes.
Because we've disagreed on the Cardinals' job.
He's also, I mean, in the short term, he's not going to be ready to play.
Exactly.
November,
he's injured.
December.
I
think I'm going to have them 32nd on the power rankings.
I don't know much about, is it Monty Ossenfort? Am I pronouncing it correctly? I mean, I know his resume, but I don't know.
Not well thought of enough in the Tennessee Titans building to interview for the only other open general manager job. But
so I think that I think personnel is going to have a lot to do with it there.
And it is a roster in not good shape because they were built. They had this very old roster to begin with last year. On defense, they lose they could lose their 3 best players. J.J. Watt's gone. Zach Allen and Byron Murphy are both free agents. The offensive line's not good. DeAndre Hopkins is 30 years old. You got Hollywood Brown, I guess, but it is a team not in good shape. They're the 3rd overall pick, so
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
something, but
Yeah. So I mean, can he rise above his? We'll see. I think talent has a lot to do with this. But
I think if you were giving me situation agnostic, like without knowing what's going on, I think I would probably rather have Jonathan Gannon I think I would be more likely to hire Jonathan Gannon as a head coach than Shane Steichen for some of the reasons you said. I think with Shane, you're getting some offensive expertise and some play calling bona fides. But I do think that like Jonathan Gannon strikes me as more likely to like set up a like top down, well run organization with like a cohesive philosophy, just based on talkings to him.
Now
to other people.
The second part of your question.
Now, but hold on. I also think we should say the thing about like you wouldn't hire somebody like a defensive coordinator coming off a Super Bowl like that based on their performance, and same for Matt Patricia. I mean, I think it is right to say that if Jonathan Gannon was a different color, he probably would not be hired. Like that's what history would tell us. I think like his resume and even Shane Steichen's resume compared to similar people, the fact that they're white guys helps them a lot.
I mean, I think the NFL has a major issue here. I think that, and that's independent of Jonathan Gannon or Shane Steichen. I think that the NFL has a major issue, and yeah, I would, but I don't know if I would go as far as to say Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen were hired because of the color of their skin. I think that there's. But I would agree the NFL has a major issue in this hiring cycle.
I would say they were more likely to be hired than otherwise.
Yeah. This hiring cycle did not address an issue that remains ongoing in the NFL,
nor has any hiring cycle.
And it's something to definitely monitor here, especially as the Eagles hire an offensive coordinator, because I think we're continuing now. Jonathan Gannon aside, we're continuing to see a trend of offensive coordinators being hired, or former head coaches, which you've seen in some other places, but offensive coordinators in particular. And this is something that is important to watch and important to monitor, and building that pipeline is important for sure. To the second
part of the question.
Yeah, to the second part of your question. Yeah, I think that I think Shane Steichen showed the last year and a half that he is a good play caller, and especially good play caller for this offense. And not to say it's easy to find a good defensive coordinator, but I think that there are more good defensive coordinators out there than there are good play callers out there. Is that fair to say?
I could see that. Yeah.
So how would they lose?
Opinion.
Yeah. So now Brian.
I just think it matters less.
Yeah. Brian Johnson, from my understanding, called plays in 2020 at Florida, and they had a really interesting offense there. I mean, Kyle Trask was record-setting quarterback. Kyle Pitts was awesome at tight end. Kadarius Toney was used very creatively at wide receiver. So that was a good offense in 2020. Now, Dan Mullen was the head coach and was his offense, right? But from my understanding, and I could be wrong here, if anyone is following along and knows otherwise, let me know. But my understanding is in 2020, Brian Johnson did call plays there. So Johnson has experience, but certainly he doesn't have the NFL track record of calling plays, and time will tell how that goes. That's a big part of what Shane Steichen did. I think, like I said, Nick Sirianni, and he's gone on record saying this, and you wrote about this in your piece a week ago. I assume everyone's checked that out, but make sure you read it. If not, that Nick Sirianni takes pride in this being his offense, right? Like the game planning, even the installation, the play design, that's coming from Nick. And Nick has said, if it's Steichen calling it, if it's Brian Johnson calling it, if it's Kevin Patullo, if it's Jason Michael, if it's Jess Stoutland, it's Sirianni's offense. The defense, it's a little different. Sorry. I keep having this problem of Sirianni when I say Sirianni. Yeah. The defense is a little different story here. And so, but I'm curious to see if they stay in the, I guess I'll defer to you. Do you stay in the Vic Fangio school here and Sean Desai with the Seahawks as someone who's been a defensive coordinator with the Bears, has Temple connections, right? He was a grad assistant, was an assistant at Temple. I think he has a graduate degree from Temple, and he's the assistant head coach. But it'd be it's not a lateral move to go to defensive coordinator. He'd be overseeing a unit. So that's a name that I've heard. I think Jeff McClain from the Inquirer and Birds with Friends guest had Peter Hansen from he's the Panthers linebackers coach now, but interesting.
From the Broadway show, Dear Peter Hansen.
That's Evan Hansen, right? I know that one.
He's reference out of you. Nice job.
Yeah. Emily likes that show. So I haven't seen it, but I think I told her that I would see it at some point.
That'd be a good thing to,
I think a belated Valentine's. Yes. Something's, but something will be good.
Maybe Mother's Day. Make sure you knock that one out of the park.
Yeah. Or just like a random Tuesday. That's the other thing I've learned. Sometimes I think it was from Finding Forrester, and they said the key to a woman's heart is an unexpected gift and an
punch the cage, Jamal.
So as I was saying, Peter Hansen is Pete Hansen is he's the linebackers coach for the Panthers now, was with the Broncos last year, but has a background with the 49ers and at Stanford with Vic Fangio, and Jeff put his name out there, and Jeff's very plugged in. But, I still think Denard Wilson is the internal candidate to watch. And cast a wide net. I see in the chat people are saying Vance Joseph. Adam Schefter said that on radio this morning. Vance Joseph was the Cardinals defensive coordinator last year, former Broncos head coach, had success as the Dolphins defensive coordinator in the past. It would behoove the Eagles to cast a wide net because, like we've discussed, this defense could look awfully different.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's going to be a totally different defense, even if it is Denard Wilson. 5 of the 7 starters in the back 7 are free agents. Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave are free agents, to say nothing of, Linval Joseph and Brandon Graham and Dominican Sue, guys like that. Nick Rallis, the linebackers coach, sounds like is probably going to go to Arizona with Jonathan Gannon. So that's another position to backfill. Who knows what else is going to happen there. So it's going to be a different staff, a different group of personnel entirely. And it's going to be an interesting challenge for Howie Roseman this offseason.
But in 2016, the Eagles specifically they hired Jim Schwartz for a lot of reasons. Jim Schwartz was a very established defensive coordinator. But at that time, the Eagles clearly identified Fletcher Cox as a centerpiece for their defense. And one of the things they wanted was to maximize their elite talent, was to maximize Fletcher Cox. And they viewed Jim Schwartz, who had a great resume, but especially when they saw what he did with Ndamukong Suh, they saw what he did with Albert Hainsworth, they saw what he did with Marcel Darius. They thought that was a chance to really maximize Fletcher Cox. I'm not saying the Eagles should make a hire based on Hassan Reddick, but whoever they hire needs to have a very clear vision for how to maximize Hassan Reddick, because Hassan Reddick is a unique player. We've seen this in the past, and he's not like an every scheme player. And the worst thing they could do is, well, not the worst thing, but a very bad thing they could do is bring in a defensive coordinator, and then we're talking in November how this guy doesn't know how to use Hassan Reddick. I think Hassan Reddick is the best player on their, or is the most important player on their defense right now.
I think that's a good point. I also think that maybe we, to some degree, overrated the degree to which you need to maximize, like you need to change your scheme for him. Like, we were so worried in the summer about, how often are they going to ask him to drop? And really, like, the truth is you just put him on the edge on 3rd down and he's going to be fine. I don't know how much like scheme versatility there isn't there. I think he can pretty much play anywhere.
Yeah, but
negative.
Yeah, but I do think they need to start. They need to say, how are you going to use Hassan Reddick, right?
Yeah.
What's your Hassan Reddick plan? That is
Let him get after
very
the quarterback.
important. Yeah, but how and where and when
On third down from the edge.
There you go. Yeah. Or first and second down too.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. It's a very interesting test of Sirianni, and also we know that this is something that Howie Roseman is going to be involved in as well. Trying to leverage his own connections across the league. It's not going to be just who Sirianni knows.
Yeah, and that's part of the difficulty in saying they're going to hire X, Y, or Z, because it's a very important hire. I would say defensive coordinator more than offensive coordinator, because I have a strong expectation that the offensive coordinator's internal. And even though I think Denard Wilson would be a good candidate internally, I think the defensive coordinator there might be a little more flexibility. And the other thing too that
I like Denard Wilson. I talked to him a little bit about this topic sort of during Super Bowl week, which I'll write about later. So.
Yeah, I like Denard Wilson too, and I think similar to Gannon, he has a background in scouting, and I think that helps you sometimes with understanding personnel. He was in camp, I believe, in an NFL camp earlier in his career, but he's worked at different places with different defensive coaches. Players rave about him, and I'm always for people getting an opportunity. Most
important part of his resume, of course, Marissa.
I'm not sure.
Guess where he played in college.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Overlapped with Coach Flynn.
Well, I mean, then that's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that there's often this predisposition.
Sure.
To like hire the established defensive coordinator, right? Like find someone who's been there, done that. Well, like everyone needs an opportunity for a first time. And I think that if you believe in Denard Wilson, you can do that. It doesn't need to be someone who's been a defensive coordinator before. But
you okay?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm just avoiding the sun. The sun from my window is like shining in, so I keep moving my position. I'm great. Okay. No, this is all interesting.
I'm
worried we're still on the arguing over Swooper.
Oh no, I'm just fine. The crown fits just fine.
But I think too that there was a strong belief last year that the Eagles could lose Gannon to the Texans job. And so Nick Sirianni got a head start on kind of thinking about different defensive coordinator candidates. I mean, certainly there was a belief that they could lose Steichen this offseason, but I think they've had a year to plan for defensive coordinators. If you want some like outside the box hires, Jim Leonard was great at Wisconsin. Like his defenses were awesome to watch, and he's a former NFL player, is very well regarded. If they went that route, if they went the college route, if you want to make connections to Nick Sirianni, Alex Grinch didn't have a good year at USC this past year, but he's someone he played at Mount Union with Sirianni, and he had really good defenses at multiple stops in college football, right? But I also want to emphasize
he's a mean one though.
Because he's the Grinch. Yeah. It doesn't need to be.
Nailed it.
And look, I was guilty of this. I was guilty of this in my story today because
he's a bit green, don't you think?
It's natural. It's natural to make connections, to say Sirianni knows this person or worked with this person, and that is, admittedly, that is how a lot of hires are made. What? But you don't have to just hire somebody you know, right? And I want to make that clear. You don't have to just hire somebody you know. So it's very easy in the media to make, he worked with X, or he knows what he worked with, or he knows why he played with this person. The cohabitation matrix Bring in different people. Bring in someone you've never met before, but you either respect when you watch film them or you hear good things about them. You never know. That's a great way to hire the best candidate is to bring in different people.
I do think there is a personality dynamic though. Like some people have floated Mike Zimmer, and it sounds like he may be going to Arizona with Gannon anyway. But like Mike Zimmer, the crotchety, cantankerous, like everybody hates him, does not really seem to be like a culture match with Nick Sirianni in the same building, don't you think? Like I think that stuff matters.
Oh yeah, I mean I definitely think personality matters, but I mean Jim Schwartz had a different personality than Doug Peterson. I think it doesn't have to be one for one, but there it has to fit within the overall parameters of where and how you want the.
How do you think we'll look
system to
back
run.
on the Jonathan Gannon era?
I mean, this is a polarizing topic here. Look, we said before the season, back when Shield was still on with us, that they need to have a top 10 unit. Isn't that what I think that's the way you and Shield framed it? They had number 6 based on DVOA. They had the number 1 pass defense this year based on DVOA. They set a franchise record with 70 sacks. And I think he had more success than probably the reputation suggests. But he did not have a good Super Bowl. And I think part of that had to do with the fact that they played the best player in the NFL, but they didn't offer much resistance to him, and especially in the second half of that game. And they gave up a 10-point lead, and they did not stop them once in the second half of the game. And that cannot be ignored when the era is looked back on. The biggest game, they needed to play better defensively.
And it's not just that it was Patrick Mahomes, because Patrick Mahomes in his 2 games against the Eagles played better than he played against any other team in the league. Mm-hmm. Like they did worse against Patrick Mahomes than every other team. I think all of that stuff. I think he had a very good year. It's hard to parse out the schedule, but I think the legacy of Jonathan Gannon will be that his defense against really good quarterbacks wasn't interesting enough and couldn't get it done. I think that will. I think he had a very good year, but I think that will be the legacy.
Okay. Yeah. Look, I mean, we don't need to keep relitigating this. I think that the schedule only seems to come up when the defense is discussed and not when the offense is discussed, which I always find to be a curious way to go about this.
When the Eagles played a good defense, they still performed well on offense.
What's that? Right. I lost you there from a Siri thing. Can you say that again?
Yeah, call Emily Berman.
She's working right now, but she would have a lot to say, so we don't need to have her.
No, I think because the offense is like self-evidently really good.
Okay, I mean,
I think the pass. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the offense was. Let's see here. The Eagles were number 3 overall in DVOA. The offense was number 3. The defense was number 6. So I think the defense was evidently really good too. They had 70 sacks. They had a turnover in all but 2 games this season, or a takeaway in all but 2 games this season, right? And like if the defense is getting credit for beating up bad quarterbacks, or not getting credit, I should say, for beating up bad quarterbacks. I mean, look at I'm looking at the bottom, the bottom 5 of here. This is offensive DVOA. Let me look at defensive DVOA here. Okay, the bottom of offensive DVOA. Okay, 32 is Chicago. Eagles played them. Okay, 29 is Giants. Eagles played them twice. 28 is the Lions. Eagles played them. 27 is Minnesota. Eagles played them. 26 is Jacksonville. Eagles play them. 24 is Arizona. Eagles play them. 22 is Houston. Eagles play them. 20 is Green Bay.
You know what the difference is, Zach?
What's that?
Number 1 is San Francisco. Number 2 is
Yeah.
Dallas. And they put up over 30 points on both of them. So when they had to play the best, they still performed very well. That's the difference.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So when the proof was in the pudding, as Mrs. Slay might say,
True.
they showed up. That's the difference.
Fair. Okay.
Okay. It's going to be a very interesting couple weeks. We'll see how things turn out. Obviously, we will be paying close attention, both on the show and on The Athletic. Let's turn our attention a little bit, Zach, before we close things out to locker room yesterday. Clean out. What were the things that jumped out to you?
So I'm gonna turn this
The
back
big
to
fight
you
between
first.
AJ Brown and
Yeah.
not Juju Smith-Schuster, but Martin Frank.
I'm gonna turn this back to you because you were front and center for AJ. What did you hear AJ say? I mean, I heard the recording, but I admittedly I was in the back, and it's hard for me when I'm in the back to kind of hear what they say.
And
Actually,
he was
no.
going. He wasn't quite all the way to an
Yeah.
Alshon level, but he
Yeah.
was talking low.
Wait, before we get to AJ, I mean, Jalen Hurts is Jalen Hurts, so we just need to establish that.
I think that's been established.
No, so the fact that he spoke, the contract is is a huge topic this offseason. He said he wants to win championships. There's going to be a day to talk about the contract, but today's not the day. So he didn't really address it, but our expectation is a deal comes up. The next part here, he the Super Bowl is going to linger with him. He said that he remembers, and I talked about this in the post-game pod, he lost a very similar game as a freshman in college when he scored a game-winning touchdown or a go-ahead touchdown with 2 minutes to go. Then Deshaun Watson got the ball last for a last meaningful drive. Deshaun Watson leads Clemson on a go-ahead touchdown, or a game-winning touchdown. And he said he remembers that day saying they were the next day saying sophomore year begins now. And he says his fourth year begins now, and he's motivated to get back to the winner's circle. So that's what Jalen Hurts said. Let me know what AJ Brown said.
Yeah, I didn't think it was a controversial thing that AJ Brown said. He said basically what I said in the postgame pod, that when they got kicked a field goal to go up 26-21, he said he knew deep down that they might lose. And that was the truth. We talked about, they had that 10-point buffer. They had if we score touchdowns every time we get the ball, we will win the game. That was in their hands. And when they had to settle for that field goal and you only go up 6 against Patrick Mahomes, he knew deep down. And he seemed to be the guy who was, of everybody in the locker room, whether it was how he was really feeling or not, who was really, sort of still hurt by the loss. And we saw him in the locker room. He was a little bit animated. I don't know what about. I'm sure he wanted the ball more and thought he could make a difference. But once they lost that buffer, losing was very much on the table, if not probable. And so he admitted that. And then he was asked about if they get the ball at the end, do they think they would have won? He said he'd like to think so. But that became like a polarizing thing quickly, because it was like it was as if he said he knew they were going to lose. That's not quite what he said, but he referenced playing the Chiefs last year with the Titans and having a similar situation. They threw an interception, and he knew then that they were probably going to lose the game. You can't give Patrick Mahomes an inch, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, they needed touchdowns, and they got a field goal, and they got a 3-and-out there in the second half, and the defense did them no favors.
It's going to be annoying that Nick Sirianni's press conference is not going to be for 2 weeks, and there's going to be all this stuff about coaching staff, and I'm going to still have to ask him about punting on 4th and 3 because no one's asked him about it yet.
Or you can ask him about explosive plays just to adjudicate the.
Well, that's already been decided. That's on you guys to settle.
No. I tend to agree with what AJ Brown said. I don't think it was controversial. I think that it was very clear they had a chance to lose that game in the second half, right? I mean I didn't think what he said was controversial. James Bradbury, who turned into the man of the evening last night, James Bradbury, who he spoke about free agency. It was brought up to him. Says he thinks he's earned top dollar. He wants to win somewhere, but he's got to be paid accordingly. The roster is going to matter to him. Years is going to matter to him, not like long term, but he wants to unpack his bags a bit, right? So that's something to watch there. I did ask him about the accountability factor, which Bo wrote about in his day after column, and what James said was that he viewed it like he only had two options. He could accept responsibility or he could blame somebody else. And he said the way, he was raised by his mom and what he's learned from coaches was to take accountability. What do you got there?
Grapefruit bubbly.
Grapefruit. Interesting. Not a big grapefruit guy. What about you, Marissa? Do you like grapefruit?
I like grapefruit. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm a big grapefruit fan.
Interesting. Yeah. Grapefruit. It's too bitter for me.
I like that though. I like eating an actual grapefruit, but they're very
Yeah,
messy.
Oh.
Yeah, you need the spoon
The spoon, yeah.
with the ridges. It used to be a big thing at my grandma's house.
Mm.
Lots of
Yeah, I feel
grapefruit.
like it's an old person thing.
I like a grapefruit. I'm in on the grapefruit.
Yeah.
I'm so anti grapefruit.
Wow.
Yeah. As we were
might as well call it CRT. You're so anti. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, Bo,
that far.
that's wrong. That is like
I don't get it. So
It's a
Yeah.
joke in poor taste. Okay.
Yeah, very poor taste. Okay. So to get back to what we were saying. So yeah, James Bradbury discussed that he discussed the accountability factor. Elsewhere, Quez Watkins was dealing with an injury ever since the Tennessee game, a sprained shoulder. Grade 2, I believe.
Yeah, this is funny. This is like this is a classic locker room cleanout day trope where guys like Kaiser White did the same thing. Said he was dealing with an ankle injury.
Yeah.
For like a 5-week spell. Yeah.
So he Quez says he did not he regressed the season. He said it was mental. He needs to play better. Something to watch there.
Did he expand on that it was mental?
Like confident or not. He said he let things get to him there. He said it was because I asked him if it was his circumstance or he said, no, it was just him. He and then the injury too.
Do you think Quez Watkins will be the number 3 receiver next year?
I think it'll be. Actually, no, I don't.
I don't think so either.
I don't.
I think it'll be a 3rd round rookie.
Do you think Quez Watkins could be traded this offseason?
Yeah, but who's trading for Quez Watkins?
That's a fair question. Yeah, I mean he's shown something in the past.
Yeah, I mean he provides an element to an offense. He's there for spacing, right?
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think that something. I think the Eagles can find a 3rd receiver who can also return for them, punts and kicks. That would be
Britton Covey hater.
No, I actually like Britton.
He grew on me. I like Britton Covey.
Yeah.
I'm in on Britton Covey.
Yeah, if they bring Britton back, I think that's fine too. He didn't have a great season, but I think he did improve as the year went on.
I think by the end of the year, he was one of the better punt returners in the league by the numbers.
Yeah, and he showed some juice in the Super Bowl too.
Yeah, he sure did.
It's a good punt. Yeah, so yeah, I'm not saying they need to up. I'm just saying if there's you can always have talent in the building.
This
right?
is going to be such a good flu world order.
Which game is that again?
That's when we rank the likelihood of who's back. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
It's gonna be
great. Elsewhere in the locker room, I saw
the one that
the Eagles put out a picture of like the interviews, and it looked like you were Hassan Reddick's bodyguard.
I didn't see this.
Okay, I'm gonna send Marissa this, or I'm gonna put it in the Slack thread.
Actually, Marissa, I would like to Slack you a picture too if you're able to get it up quickly.
Oh,
because
God.
it's worth. It's not. This is not a Zach picture.
Okay, good.
Let me see here. This is good stuff. The one thing that we didn't talk about that AJ Brown, was mentioning. The punt is still the one that hangs with me, but you could make the case that they should have gone for it on 4th and 6 on that drive.
Yeah. No, that's a good point too.
Up 3 points.
That's a good point too. Marissa, in this tweet that I sent you, the first photo here with Hassan Reddick.
I'll pull it up.
I don't know if we can put it on the screen or not. But this was from the Eagles Twitter account, and I saw it, and it really looks like Bo is Hassan Reddick's bodyguard in this photo. Just
Could you imagine a scenario in which I would be Hassan Reddick's bodyguard?
Based on the way Bo is standing,
Where would we have to be that he would need protection from me?
Everybody else is looking at Hassan Reddick. Bo is looking out here. Do you see the photo, Bo? Do you see it?
No. Let me see.
I slacked it to us.
Marissa, I also slacked you a photo. Yeah, I can start to see that.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
I do kind of look like his bodyguard.
Yeah, I bring that as boy saying you were front.
More
and
like
center.
his like press agent, obviously, because
Yeah.
I'm not anyone's bodyguard, especially his.
Yes.
We now have it on the
so you
screen.
see that there. Yeah. So what did Hassan Reddick say when you were guarding him there?
Nothing particularly interesting, I don't think.
Okay.
He said he's not a look back guy; he's a look ahead guy. He's excited to have an offseason for the first time in 3 years where he doesn't have to worry about where he's going to be playing next year, and he can stay home, which is nice. And this is the NFL. Change comes every year, so the defense is going to look a lot different next year, and maybe he'll take on a slightly more leadership role.
Okay.
Do you have the other photo, Marissa?
Yes, I have it.
Okay, this was, I thought, the most interesting part of locker room cleanout day. This, if you will see, for the viewers, are two, like, in the Eagles locker room, they have these laundry bins that are enormous, that everybody puts their clothes in, their practice clothes, they wash them and all that stuff. What you have here is two enormous laundry bins filled to the brim with packages. And you look at these packages and you're like, oh, this is interesting. Is this all trash? What is this? No. These two laundry bins are filled to the brim with packages all addressed to Josh Sweat. These are all of Josh Sweat's unopened packages. Who knows how long they've been sitting there? Zach, do you think these are computer parts? What do we think is going on here? Let's speculate.
Well, the top one on the left definitely is the white box. Now, I can't tell you what the Amazon one is, but the top one on the left is a computer box. The right is in the plastic shield. That's headphones that the Eagles are giving away to the players, personalized headphones. Mm-hmm. The Amazon boxes, I couldn't tell you. He is the opposite of my son, who is also who's not 6'5" and 260. Yeah, he's not 6'5", 260 and runs a 4.4. But my son, I imagine, is like many of us on here, who gets like an endorphin rush from opening packages. When my son opens birthday presents, it's like the opening of it is more exciting than what the actual present is. It's the thrill, the mystery of it. And he's getting a package today, something I got him at Best Buy, and he gave me strict orders not to open the package. Right? He wants to open the package. So Josh Sweat apparently doesn't get that same endorphin rush from opening up the package.
Maybe he does, but he's been saving the endorphins for after the season. Yeah. Otherwise, who knows what would happen? He'd be jumping off sides every play.
Yeah. I've never worked at like a traditional office, but is this a common thing to get things sent to your office as opposed to your home?
I think a lot of guys get stuff sent to the facility because then someone's always there to sign for it.
Oh, they're not going to be home. Yeah.
When they're not home and when they're on the road, and if they don't have a significant other, and if it's expensive packages, you don't want it sitting out.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of some of Michael's friends on the team, their wives told me they always get stuff sent to the facility instead of their residence. But
that makes more sense. I thought it was a privacy thing when I first heard about it, because in 11 years in the locker room, I've heard guys always want stuff sent to the locker room instead of the house. But now that you frame it that way, Marissa, that's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it could be both. Like if you lived in an apartment complex and you didn't want everything, in the mailroom saying your name.
Yeah.
But it's definitely way more secure by sending packages to the facility that's has security.
Oh, we lost you, Marissa.
Oh, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
I can hear you, but you're frozen.
Yeah, you're frozen.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
You're frozen and you have a crown. You're Elsa over there.
And it's blue.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Well, as always, Zach's got a radio hit coming up, so we better.
I have an athletic podcast, okay, that I'm doing that they need to do today, and that I'm available today. So that is what it is. Let's not. It's our Colts podcast. Make sure you check that out. We'll be talking Shane Steichen with the great Zach Kiefer.
That's right. Okay, Zach, is there anything else that you think we should talk about? Is there anything else from cleaning up the Super Bowl that we didn't give enough time to, or that you've been thinking about?
Oh, well, I mean, so the 4th and 3, I listened back to our podcast and I agreed that they should have. So I guess I want to clarify this. Okay. I was totally on board with what you said, that they should have gone for it on the 4th and 3. Where I disagreed with you on is that, I think the 65-yard punt return mattered. Okay. That's where you and I disagreed. But I think that argument kind of got misinterpreted by some to mean that I was defending the punt. I was not defending the punt. I think they should have gone for it. And I looked it up, and in that situation this year, I don't have the numbers in front of me here. I think they're 5 of 7 when they've gone for 4th and 3. Okay.
Anywhere on the field?
Anywhere on the field. 5 of 7 on 4th and 3. They've gone for, now they've punted in that situation more than they have, or they haven't gone for it in that situation on that spot of the field. They've been punting there. But here, let me pull this up.
It was a short 3 also, because it was originally ruled as a 2. I just think that punting there was a misunderstanding of the game that you were playing in that moment. I think it had become clear that game was all about possessions and scoring touchdowns on your possessions, and that was the only way to win. And giving that up on a reachable first down when you have been so good on offense in the game anyway, and it should have been a likely pickup, was failing in the moment. I think that was the biggest play of the game.
Dan Orlovsky has something out about the 3rd down right before that as the play that's going to really haunt the Eagles. What were your thoughts on that 3rd down now that you've gone back and had a chance?
Well, I think it was a really bad play if you weren't going to go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It seemed in real time like they called that play with the expectation that they would then go for it on 4th down.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Agreed. Yep.
Similarly, the play which we maybe didn't give quite enough discussion to at the end of the first half, when you had the ball on the 19 with 15 seconds left and a timeout, and you run one play and it's a 5-yard crosser to Kenny Gainwell. I think you got to be able to come away with one shot at the end zone in that situation. Yeah.
That's a good point too. Professor Soman had something up. I got to admit, after the Harrison Butker field goal, I was like, all right, they lost this game. And I saw the Hail Mary at the end, but I honestly, I was writing, I was preparing, I was doing a bunch of things. I did not see this until Professor Selman posted it up that Kenny Gainwell actually had a chance to return that kickoff there. There was a seam there that could have changed things. Yeah.
I didn't see that.
He put it on Twitter, so you can check. If you're watching this, I imagine you followed in his. You can check that out. But there was a seam there where I mean, I'm not saying they
I'm sure that he was told.
He was told. That's what I'm saying.
Like, absolutely not. Yeah.
He was told to get down. But when you just look at the amount of time that was on the clock,
they
were only really going to run one play anyway. So there's probably time to get some yardage on that return and set up a Hail Mary. With the Hail Mary, there's been this again, I don't want to defeat a straw man argument, and I certainly don't think like X amount of people on social media is representative of a general opinion. But there's just been this thought that Jalen Hurts, like, didn't have the arm strength there. And Jalen Hurts very clearly said that he stepped on Jason Kelsey's heel, and that affected his throw. And when you watch the film, you see that occur. So
the other thing they could have done, if you look at it, because they were only rushing 2, they could have just started have Jalen Hurts running down the field behind his 5 offensive linemen. I mean, he probably wouldn't have scored, but he could have got. I mean, it could have been close.
Yeah. But that's certainly something to think about there. I think overall, I think
the field thing we didn't talk maybe enough about. I still think I just think it was much more about it being embarrassing for the league. And similarly, the Bradbury call, like those are things that reflect poorly on the league than I think were the reason that the Eagles lost. I mean, the Bradbury call is a huge reason that they lost, but
so the field thing, it affected both pass rushers. It affected pass rushers from both sides. It affects people who are turning corners, right? The most. Those are the guys who are slipping. And so the Eagles edge rushers were very clearly, when I went and watched the game back, like you could see Hassan Reddick on the ground, and Ted Gwynn has something up about this too. So but it definitely affected the Eagles, and it is something that as we look back at this game, I will think about. The thing where I think where Gannon's defense and the Eagles' defensive game plan is more problematic than where it really sticks out to me is the Chiefs were doing things with motion that the Eagles were just not prepared for, and not making it. If they were prepared for it, they did not adequately show it. They did not make adjustments to that. And I think that's where I think that was a problem. Patrick Mahomes beat them. Patrick Mahomes he's the MVP for a reason, but the Eagles didn't put up enough resistance for things that they were out schemed in addition to being outplayed. And I think that was the problem with the defense.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that jumped out when I watched it was Jalen was so good.
Unbelievable.
Right? But the running game was not good. The running game was not good.
I that was still the biggest thing that surprised me.
Yeah.
Was how ineffective the Eagles' running game absent Jalen Hurts was. And I think that was a huge deal in the game, because if they could have approached that second half the way that they normally approach the second half and been able to run the ball and kill a little bit more clock, it would have changed the calculus.
Yeah, 100%. Jalen was their running game, and that jumped out too.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Do you have something else to say?
No, I was just gonna say we're still expecting to hear from Nick Sirianni at some point this week. I think Bo's gonna have any updates for you there, and we'll be back.
If it's this week, I hope. If it's next week, it's you.
Okay, yeah, I got to imagine it's this week.
I don't know, maybe they'll wait till they finalize the staff. They've done that before.
No, the coach is always someone is required to talk this week. So
okay,
but we will between the schedules, we got to find a time in these next few weeks to chat with you, our audience. But we have the combine coming up in a week and a half. And we are going to have a live podcast from Indianapolis. It's going to be great to see Marissa. And I was going to say, as I was going to say pregnant Marissa, I didn't know if you're comfortable with me calling you that. Yeah.
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 I'm excited to see you guys too. It should be a fun week.
So that's why I was hesitant. I didn't want to call out like the baby bump, but I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see Marissa. Yeah.
Marissa, how often do random strangers on the street, just try to touch your belly?
Oh, that's a violation.
Not.
Yeah, that's
not that often
yet. It happens like way too often. Like,
not
people
that
think
often
they can just touch a pregnant belly.
It's still like smallish.
It's not the Please Touch Museum.
Growing by the minute. I'm very hungry all the time, so hopefully we have lots of meals in Indianapolis.
Yeah. Oh, I'm
Zach,
down for that.
I'm ready for your list of good restaurants.
Oh, I'm down for that. You're joining us, Marissa. I have some good places.
Perfect.
Marissa, I mean, before we jump off, I don't know if I've told this story on the pod before, but this is one that always cracks Emily up. Is there was someone who we worked with who Emily knew from high school, who was very clearly pregnant, right? And Emily saw, and like anyone who saw her, well, she was probably 8 months pregnant at that point, and anyone who saw her could tell. And if Emily would see pictures of her on social media, and Emily would say, "Did you congratulate her or like ask her how she's feeling or whatever it was?" And I was like, "I thought you can't bring that up, right?" Like, she's like, "Well, it's that obvious you're allowed to." I was like, I thought it's offensive if you bring up if you bring that up to somebody.
She probably thought you were just being rude and didn't.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what Emily said. That like it gets to a point where you're rude if you don't acknowledge it. But then when's it too early to? Or I think I thought I see Claire in the chat saying I am right here. What's the threshold for when you're allowed to bring it up, or do you have to wait for someone to bring it up and acknowledge it first?
I mean, like
Yes,
I've very
I think so.
clearly announced it, so
Yeah.
I feel like it's like a
No,
obvious
but
thing.
someone you see if a random person at the
Oh.
combine said, "Oh, when you do," or "How are
Yeah.
you feeling?" Is that appropriate? Or
I mean, I feel like if they know that I'm pregnant, yeah.
Yeah.
But if they didn't know, I think that would be like a little weird.
If you're not 100%,
Yeah.
don't
You
say
gotta
anything.
like
Okay,
know.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
You gotta like check your sources.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You need two independent sources.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that'll do it for this episode of Birds with Friends. Maybe we'll be back at some point this week. Maybe we'll be back next week. Who knows? We'll see. So, for Zach and Marissa, I am Bo, your 2022 Swooper Swordcasting champion.
Fake swooper
And
champion.
on behalf of all of us, we thank you for listening. We'll talk to you later. And as always, we love you.